Redgate!
Amazing. Thank you so much all for joining. I'm really happy to be part of New Starts of Data, and today I would like to talk to you about a tool that has significantly helped me is Server DBA, and that tool is dbatools. But before we start, I would like to introduce myself. My name is Lena Kovacheva, originally from Bulgaria, hence the funny accent. I moved to the UK back in 2015 to study mathematics. Currently, I'm working as a database engineer based in Southampton. I have been working as DBA for just over a year now, and I'm really passionate about data and data technologies. You can find me on social media. You can see all of the links on the slide. I'm doing my best to be active on Twitter recently. Also, before we start with the actual presentation, I would like to ask the audience if they actually have used dbatools before, if they have experience with PowerShell, the tool itself, please leave your answer in the chat window. I would also like to say that I'm happy to be asked questions at any time of the presentation. We'll leave a few slots where you can ask questions. So feel free to pop all of your questions into the chat window. This will be a beginner session, so no prior knowledge to dbatools or PowerShell is required. Hopefully by the end of it, you will have a clear idea of what dbatool is and how you can include it into your day-to-day work. Amazing. So with that said, let's actually jump to the actual presentation. I would like to start with a short story time. As I mentioned, I have been working as a database engineer for just over a year. And a few months after starting my job, I was working on a project to collect some SP configure information from a few hundred servers. Back then I was thinking, how hard could that be? I will just log into the box, get the information that I need, and then we'll move to the next box, and the next one, and another one, and another one. And as you can probably imagine, by lunchtime, I was hating my life. And by the end of the day, I did what any other person in that situation would do. I just shouted for help. And here I was super lucky because I'm working with some amazing folks who are really good at automation and dbatools. And they actually showed me a solution that is much more efficient. And the solution was dbatools. On the next day, I was able to complete my task in less than 30 minutes. And that was actually the first time when I saw how powerful dbatool is and how much time it can save you and how much it can improve the quality of your work. Since then, I have been using dbatools almost every day. And as I said, it has helped me a lot. And because of this, I wanted to share it with more folks because I think everyone can benefit from it. And now knowing why I want to talk about dbatools, let me tell you what the plan of the day is. So first thing first, I will chat about what dbatool actually is. And at the end of the slideshow, and then we will move to a bunch of demos. First, I will show you how you can install and get started with the module, and then we will walk through some scenarios on how you can use sbconfigure, how you can do sbconfigure related commands, how you can do backups and restores, and last but not least, I will show you how you can manage logins and users with dbatools. Amazing. So I have been talking for only 5 minutes, and probably I mentioned the word dbatools at least 20 times. So you may be wondering, what exactly is dbatools? Well, dbatools is an open source PowerShell module. It was started back in 2014 when Chrissy Lomer was working on a project to migrate some SharePoint databases. Then she decided to put her code into a PowerShell module. And over the years, that module has evolved to what we have nowadays as dbatools. Currently, we have more than 600 commands included into the module for managing and automating your SQL Server from the command line. Also, I want to mention that one of the things that I love particularly about dbatools is that it is community-driven. There are currently more than 200 contributors, and all of them are amazing. And if you get stuck on something or you need some help and have questions, the folks from the community will always be more than happy to help you out. If you are new to dbatools, I also want to strongly recommend checking their website, dbatools.io. There you can find a bunch of useful information, including how to install and get started with the module, you can also find a full list with all of the commands included and their documentation and all sorts of other useful information if you want to learn more about the tool. And with that said, that was the last slide for the moment. And now we will jump to some demos. Just give me a second. Here we go. So before anything else, the first step that we have to take is actually installing dbatool on our machine. There are a few ways that I will show you. So installing a module on PowerShell is performed by using the command install-module. You can install any command in PowerShell with that command. In this demo, obviously I will be installing dbatools, but have in mind that you can install any command like this. To be able to use the command install-module, you have to run PowerShell as administrator. So running install-module will actual installation of the module will usually take a couple of minutes. To save us some time, I already have dbatools installed on my machine, so we can move on. Now you may be thinking, okay, but what if I don't have administrative rights on the computer? Or what if I don't want to install it for the whole box? That's absolutely fine as well. If you use exactly the same command, install-module, you can specify the module name, but at the end you can add -scope current user. What that would do is that you will get the module installed only for the current user. The third and last scenario that I wanted to cover about installation is what if you want to install the module on a machine that doesn't have internet access? That's absolutely fine as well. You can actually download the module on a machine that has internet access, then copy a machine that's offline, and you can use the module again. You can find a little bit more information about that on the dbatools website under download and offline as well. Cool. So now you have the module installed. But as I mentioned a little bit earlier, dbatools is constantly evolving, and the community is constantly updating and adding new commands. So to be up to date with the latest version of PowerShell, you actually would like to update your module from time to time. To do this, you can use the PowerShell command update-module. Again, to be able to run that command, you actually have to run PowerShell as administrator. So you run update-module and the name of the module that you want to update. Oh, so I mentioned that you're updating the versions, but can you actually check which version you're currently running on? And the answer is yes, you can. To check which version currently you have on your computer, you can use the command get-module and the name of the command. So if I run this, you will see that currently on my machine, I have version 1.0.140 installed. So that is the version that I'm currently using. But do I have any older versions available on my machine? I can check this using the same command, -module dbatools, but I will add list available at the end. And if I run this, you will see that on my machine, I actually have two versions currently. The older one, 1.0137, and the one that I'm currently using, 1.0140. And now you may be wondering, okay, but why do I need an older version? And that's a really good question, actually, because the answer is that you don't really need the older version. The reason why I suggest you can keep it is because sometimes when the commands are updated, some of your already created scripts may not be working as expected with the latest version. So I would suggest checking that all of your scripts are working with the latest version before deleting the older one. And keeping an older one is just as a backup if you need your scripts and they are not working as expected on the latest version. Sweet. So that is everything about the installation and the actual updating of the module. So now let's see what commands we actually have included into the dbatools module. Get a full list of all of the commands that are included. You can use the command get-command and then the module name. You will see that I will return a full list with all of the commands. As you can see, that list is huge. I have commands to get information. I can update stuff, remove stuff from my databases. There's so many commands. If we actually want to be exact, I can check how many commands I currently have on that version by adding count at the end. And what that would do is that it will return number 602. So in the version 1.0140, we have 602 DBA commands. So that means that dbatools is suffering a lot, but how can I find a certain command that I'm looking for? Let's say that I actually want to perform a backup on a database. So how can I find a command that will help me to do this? There are a couple of ways which you can use to actually search for a command in dbatools. The first one is by using the PowerShell command get-command. In this case, you have to specify a keyword that you will use. In my case, that's backup. And you will also include the module where you want to search for a command. So if I actually run get-command backup and dbatools, I will get a list with all of the commands in dbatools that have the word backup into their name. So that's one way of searching for a command, but there is another way as well. Actually, inside dbatools, we have a special command, which is find-gba command. And what that find-gba command does is that it is helping us to look for other commands inside the module. There are different parameters that you can specify, which will help you to narrow the list of commands that you're looking for. In this demo, I will actually want to show you two of them. The first one is using the pattern parameter. So I'm using find-gba command, and then I'm specifying the pattern to be backup. And if I run this, you'll see that I will get a list with all of the with the name and the synopsis of all of the commands that actually have the word backup into their documentation. As you can see, this gives me a little bit more detailed and also a little bit longer list compared to the get command one. Also, as part of the documentation of each of the commands in dbatools, you can actually add a tag for the command. And after that, I can actually search for commands based on that tag. To do so, I'm using exactly the same command, find-gba command, but this time I'm using the parameter tag. And boom, you can see that I can see all of the functions that are having tag backup. If I go to the top, the first function is actually backup-gba database. Looking at the synopsis, this will actually help me back up one or more of my SQL databases, exactly what I was looking for. Oh, so now I actually found the command that I want to use, but how exactly I can use that command? Well, without a doubt, everyone would agree that one of the most useful commands in PowerShell is the command get-help. And this will help you exactly for questions like this. To get a little bit more information about the command that we are interested in our case, backup-gba database, we can run get-help, the name of the command. This will return part of the documentation for this command. I will get information such as the name, the synopsis, the syntax, description, and also I will see a link which will bring me to the full documentation of this command. And now you may be wondering, but can I, instead of going to the website, can I actually see the full documentation using a command from here? And the answer is yes, and I will show you two ways of how you can do this. The first way is using exactly the same command, get-help backup DBA database, but I will add show window. And what that will do if I run it is that it will open a pop-up window where I can see the full documentation. As you can see, I can, apart from the synopsis and the description, I can also see all of the parameters included with some information about them. And also in the full documentation, at the end of it, you can see one of my favorite parts, which is the examples included in each of the documentation, in the documentation of each of the commands. Personally, I really like them because they're showing you different case scenarios of how you can use them and what outcome you may expect by passing different parameters. Another cool thing about show window is that at the top you have a search bar where you can actually, for example, search for certain parameter or work that you're interested in. But if you don't want to see this in a separate window and you just want to see the full documentation in the terminal window, that's absolutely fine as well. You can use get-help backup DBA database and then -detailed. And if I run this, you will see exactly the same full documentation like we just saw on the pop-up window for our DBA backup-DBA database command. And as I mentioned, I really like only the examples part. Sometimes when I'm familiar with a command and I don't want to see all of the parameters in documentation, but I just want to see a few examples, for just a few examples. What I like to run is actually get-help backup-DBA database and then specifying only -examples. And this will return only the examples that are included into the documentation of this command. And with that said, I just finished the first part of my demo. So just to quickly catch up, in this demo I showed you how you can install the module, how you can update up to the latest version, and how you can check which version you're currently running on. Then we saw how we can search for a command. And last but not least, we saw how to get more help about any of the about the command that we actually are interested in. Does anyone has any questions about this part of the demo?
So far, you're good. You've got a few comments from people to your original question about their experience, and most people have little DBA tools. Some have worked with PowerShell. A couple people have more DBA tools experience, but in general, I think everybody that's here is really getting value from what you've even shown so far. It's great.
Amazing. Thank you so much. Actually, that's the whole idea. As I said, that will be a beginner session. So hopefully by the end of it, everyone will be able to actually implement DBA tools in their day-to-day activities. However, with the scenarios, I hope that even people who are already familiar with the tool will actually pick up something and we will be able to learn something new as well. Amazing. So if there are no questions about the installation bit, we can jump to the actual scenario questions. The first scenario that I want to cover is related with sbconfigure. Going back to the beginning of my presentation, when I was telling you my story, all of the commands related to sbconfigure was actually the first time when I saw the magic of DBA tools. So I was a little bit biased, and that's why I decided my first scenario to be related with what you can do sbconfigure related with DBA tools. For the sake of this demo, I am setting up, I will be using two instances. I have set them as variables. I have instance 1 and instance 2. But let's start with my instance 1. Talking about configuration, probably the first thing that we may want to do is actually checking what we currently have configured on my instance 1. And DBA2 is offering us a way to quickly find this out. The command to see what we have configured is -gba sp-configured. Then we specify the instance name. In my case, I'm passing my instance 1. And what you can see at the end is that I'm piping this into output view just because it will be much clearer to see the output. So if I run this, you will see that a window will appear that will include all the configuration items with all of the information, including running values for my instance 1. Think about output view is that, again, at the top you have search bar, so you can actually look for certain configuration item. For the rest of this demo, I will actually concentrate on one configuration item in particular, which is SP command shell enabled. So let's check about it. As you can see on my instance 1, SP command shell is the running value is currently set up to 0, which is cool. So I told you that I am actually interested in only one configuration item. So you may be wondering, should I always go to that pop-up window to see all of them and then search for the one that I'm actually interested in? And the answer is no. You can actually use the same command, -gba sp-configured, again, the instance one, but you can also add the parameter name and specify the configuration item that you're interested in. In our case, that is SP command shell enabled. And if I run this, you will see that I'm getting the information only related to SP command shell. And again, you can see that currently the running value is set up to 0. So what if I want to update that value? Can I actually update what I have configured using dbatools? And the answer is yes. The command for this is set-gba sp-configured. I have to specify the instance. I have to specify the name of the configuration item I want to update. And also I have to specify the new value that I want to assign. So if I run this, you will see that I just updated what I currently have configured for SP command shell enabled on instance 1. Cool, I just made one change. But imagine that instead of changing just one configuration, I made multiple changes to my instance 1. After making few changes, I may want to actually export a SQL file that will reflect all of the configuration that I currently have on instance 1, so that later on, if I want to copy that configuration to another instance, I can do this easily. So if you want to actually export a SQL file, you can use the command export-gba sp-configured, specifying the instance name and the path where you want to save this file. Let me run this. Boom, the command completed successfully. And if we go to my C temp folder, which I specify, you can see that I just created that SQL file. I will just open it so you can see it a little bit clearer. As you can see, I have all of the configuration items and the running value on instance 1 at the moment. And as I mentioned, if needed later on, I can use that SQL file to configure other instances. Sweet. But now let's bring my instance 2 to the game as well. What if I want to compare 2 instances? This is something really cool that I actually saw in Rob's presentation, and I loved it, and I wanted to share it with you as well. So if you have 2 instances, you may want to configure, you may want to compare what you currently have running on instance 1 versus what you currently have on instance 2. We can do this by setting up 2 variables for getting the information for my instance 1 and instance 2, and then I'm actually using a hash table to compare only the running values of both of them. At the end, I'm getting my my result as an output view again, just because it will be much clearer to see it. And when I run this, just a second to change my screens. When I run this, a window with all of the configuration with the running value for instance 1 and instance 2 will appear. And I can compare them. If I want to search for a specific one, I can in the search field. And as you can probably suggest, we will continue to concentrate to our SP command shell enabled. So you can see, currently, SP command shell is set up to 1 on my instance 1, and the running value on my instance 2 is 0. So what if I want to copy what I already have on my instance 1 to my instance 2? There is an easy way you can do this with dbatools. If you want, you can use the command import-dba-spconfigure. You just have to specify the source and the destination. And by running this command, you will see that we will go through every single configuration item. It will compare what we have on instance 1 and instance 2, and if needed, it will reflect the change and it will update what we have on instance 2. So now, if I use the already familiar command get-dba-spconfigure, but this time I'm looking for what is the value of SP command shell on instance 2, you will see that now the new running value is set up to 1. That's really cool. So we just worked with 2 instances, but also one of the most powerful features of PowerShell is that you actually can work with multiple servers and instances simultaneously. Again, back to the initial story that I was telling you about, that was actually what saved me back then, because instead of going through every single instance one by one, I was actually able to create a new variable, passing all of the instances that I need, and then collecting the information for all of them at once. I want to show you this in a little bit smaller scale, but still I'm just setting up a new instance, which I will call all instances. And this new variable will include both my instance 1 and instance 2. So what if I want to get information about SP command shell enabled for both of my instances simultaneously? Then I can use the same command get dba-spconfigure, but for SQL instance, instead of specifying SQL 1 or instance 1 or instance 2, I will just pass my variable all instances. I'm formatting this as a table because it will be clearer to see the outcome. Boom. You can see that I'm getting a result for both my instance 1 and instance 2 and the currently running values. I can see that at the moment, both of them are set up to 1. I can also update multiple instances at once as well. As you can probably suggest, I will use the same command, set-dba-spconfigure. Again, instead of specifying a instance 1 or instance 2, I will just pass all instances. And this time, I want to set the value of SP command shell enabled back to 0. If I run this, you will see that now on my instance 1, the new value is set up to 0. And on my instance 2, the new value is set up to 1. That was the last thing that I wanted to share or to show you spconfigure related. So quickly catching up, I showed you how you can see what you have configured. I showed you how you can update what is currently configured. Showed you how to export SQL file, how to compare what you have configured on instances, and how you can copy what you have configured on one instance to another. And last but not least, I showed you how you can work with multiple instances at once. Does anyone has any questions about spconfigure related, the spconfigure part of the demo?
So there's nothing specific about that, although you have a couple comments that somebody's mind is blown and that this is really awesome. So I wanted to share that feedback with you. And then someone and I'm pretty sure I know the answer, but I'm going to pitch it to you anyway. Does dbatools work on other databases like Postgres, or is this just specific to SQL Server?
So it is specific for SQL Server as long as I'm aware, or at least I have been using it only for SQL Server.
Yep. That's my same experience as well, but
yeah.
I thought maybe I could be wrong. So, okay, that's all you've got at the moment, so you're good.
Amazing. So then we can move to the next part of the demo, which is related to backups and restores. Without a doubt, backups and restores are probably the most performed task by any DBA. And it is really important to know different ways of how we can do this and actually be sure that our backups and restores are working fine. So that's what, now I will show you how you can actually do backups and restores and tests with dbatools. We will continue to use the same instances, instance 1 and instance 2 for this part of the demo again. So again, let's concentrate on my instance 1. Before performing anything, probably the first thing that I want to see is what databases I actually have on my instance 1 at the moment. I can do this by running the command get-dba database, then specifying the instance name. In this case, I have excluding all system databases because I want to show you all other databases from the system ones. And I'm typing this into a table, format table, again, to be more visible. And as you can see, at the moment, I actually have only one database on my instance 1, which is my AdventureWorks 2019 database. And now let's say that I want to backup that database. The command that I will use is backup-dba database. I have to specify the instance, the name of the database, in my case, AdventureWorks 2019. I'm specifying the path where I want my backup file to be saved. If you don't specify this, it will be saved to the default backup location. And last, I'm specifying the type of the backup that I want to perform. In this case, I want to perform a full backup. If I run this, boom, in less than a minute, in just a few seconds, you will see that I just backed up my database. If we go to that backup folder, you can see that we can find our backup file there. So that was really quick, and it happened so quickly, but can we actually find a little bit more information, like how long did that backup took, what were the throughput of the backup, and all of this type of information? Yes, you can. We have a dba2 command, which is measure that dba backup throughput, specifying the SQL instance. And if I run this, you will see that I will actually get information. In this case, I'm looking at my AdventureWorks. I can see the average duration of my backup, which is 3 seconds because it's a small database. I can see the average size, the minimum throughput, and the maximum throughput. The way that this information is actually collected is that the command is looking for, so the information is collected from MSDB, and an average value is provided to be able to see the outcome. Another thing that we may want to see is a history of all of our backups. We can again do this with dbatools. The command in this case will be get-dba backup history. Again, instance 1, AdventureWorks 2019 as our database. And when I run this, you will be able to see all the backups that I have performed on my AdventureWorks 2019 database, including the latest one we just performed together. Amazing. So we just backed up one database. Now again, let's bring my instance 2 to the game. Let's follow the same approach. First thing first, I want to check what I currently have on my instance 2. I'm using the same command, get-dba database. This time I'm specifying SQL 2 as my SQL instance. And as you can see, I am actually having only my system databases and nothing else on my instance. So let's say that I now want to restore the backup that we just did of my AdventureWorks 2019 database from instance 1, and I want to restore it on my instance 2. You can do this without a problem. However, a good practice is to actually check that you have enough space on your database, on your instance before performing backup. So to do this, you can use the command measure-dba disk space requirements. And you have to specify the instance and the destination and the database that you're planning to restore. And if I run this, you will see that this will return the space that I will need to copy and replace the my AdventureWorks database. So the result is split into 2. As you can see, I can see the size of the data files. So I have 260 megs of data, and I can also see the logs. In my case, it's 70 megs of logs. So in total, I have about 330 megs needed to be able to restore my database. And now, how can I check if I have that space? The command for this is get-gba disk space. I'm specifying my instance too. And when I run this, you can see that currently I have 94 gigs available, so more than enough space to actually restore my database. And now it is time for the restore. The way we will perform a restore is by using the command restore-gba database. I'm specifying the instance. So in this case, I want the restore to be performed on instance 2. I'm specifying the location of my backup file. So it's backup, the name of the database, and I want it with replace in my case. So when I run this, you will be able to see the progress. It will take just a few seconds. And boom, we have our database restored on our instance 2. Actually, we can see that we have it there using our already familiar command get-gba database. This time selecting instance 2. I don't want to see all of the comments, so that's why I have added select object, and I want to see only the columns for SQL instance, name, the size of the database, and the status. So when I run this, you will see in just a second. Amazing. It just needed some time. You will see that now I have my AdventureWorks 2019 database on my instance 2 as well. Amazing. So it is that quick and easy to perform backups and restores in dbatools. But one of the things that I think are actually super cool in dbatools is that it allows you to actually test your backups and restores super quickly. Testing your backups and restore is essential because having a backup that cannot be restored is super useful. We will all agree on that, and can lead to really bad scenarios in the future. Usually, testing your backups and restore could take some time and could be a little bit complicated, but not if you're using dbatools. We have a command which is test-dba last backup, and in my case, I will specify my instance 2. I want this in outlet view because you will be able to see the result a little bit clearer again. And you can see this command will actually create a backup, and then we'll create a mock backup, and then we'll try to restore it. And at the end, it will drop the database if the restore is successful. At the end of all of this cycle, I will actually get a message if this if the whole process was successful or not. As you can see, for my AdventureWorks 2019, that was successful, and I can successfully restore my database if needed. It's that simple to actually perform a test. So I definitely recommend checking this out and adding test-dba last backup into your set of tools for when you're performing backups. Again, quickly recap. I showed you how to check what databases you have, how to perform backup, how to check if you have enough space to perform restore as well, then how to perform a restore, and last but not least, how to check your backups and restores. Does anyone has any questions about this part?
You do have a question, which is when you are restoring to another instance, can you specify the drive letters to which you want to restore the MDF and the LDF files?
That is a really good question. I actually don't know the answer. That is a good example of going to the full documentation and actually checking all of the parameters that you can actually include. Mm-hmm. I believe that probably you will be able to do this. Just don't want to give the wrong answer because I'm not 100% sure. Pretty much sure you can, but I would suggest going to the full documentation and checking all of the parameters if that's possible.
Yep, actually, someone else confirmed that you can do it, so your intuition was correct. And for everybody who's listening, Kendra posted the link in the chat for that documentation. So you're good.
Amazing. Thank you.
Yep.
And now we will move to the last section, actually, which is about logins and user management. with actually logins and user management is something that personally those commands are something that I personally use quite often. And that's why I wanted to share with you, because being sure that you're giving access to the right people and also the right level of access for your data is quite essential. And I think it will be beneficial to all of us as DBAs. Using exactly the same instances, instance 1, instance 2, although in this example, we will actually concentrate only on instance 1. Talking about logins and users, let's start with logins. Talking about logins, the first thing that we want to do is probably checking what are the logins that we currently have on our instance 1. We can use the command get-gba login specifying the instance. And when I run this, I will get a full list with all of the logins that I currently have in my instance 1. As you can see, at the moment, I don't have a login called Lena1. So what if I want to create a new login? I can really quickly do this using the command new-gba login. Again, specifying my instance 1 and the name of the new login that I want to create. When I run this, I will be asked to provide a password for the new login. It will just take a second. Do this. So I will be asked to provide a password. Let's be Lena1234. Don't choose password Lena1234. And boom, you can see that I just created my login Lena1 on my instance 1. I can do something similar with users for my AdventureWorks 2019 database as well. First, I can check what are the users that I currently have on that database. I can use the command get-gba user, instance name, database name, and when I run this, I will see a list with all of the users that I currently have in my AdventureWorks 2018 database. Again, as you can see, Lena1 is not one of those users. So let's add Lena1 into the list of users. You can use the command new-gba user, the instance name, the database name, and the login name. When I run this, just in seconds, I created my user Lena1. So if I run the same command to get the list of all of the users, now you will be able to see Lena1 there as well. Okay, so now that we have created a user, we may also want to check what are the roles that our members in our database have. To get what are the roles assigned to our users, we can use the command get-gba role member, specifying the instance in the database. And when I run this, I will actually get no output because at the moment, I actually haven't assigned any roles to any of my users. So let's change this. Let's assign some roles to my Lena1 user. I want to assign data reader and data writer roles to that user. To do so, I can use the command add-gba role member, instance 1, AdventureWorks 2019. As you can see, I can add multiple roles. So I want to add both data reader and data writer to my user Lena1. Running this, I will be asked for each of the roles that I want to perform if I'm sure about it, saying yes to both. If we just provide our roles to Lena1. So if I go back and check the list of all of the roles assigned to my members, you will see that now in my list, I will get that Lena1 is having both data reader and data writer access, data writer role for my AdventureWorks 2019 database. Another really cool thing that you can do with GBA tools is actually updating a password of a login. The command that you can use to update a password is set-gba login. To be able to run this command, you have to specify the instance. Again, we are using instance 1, the login, and then you have to pass your new password under the parameter secure password. However, keep in mind that your new password should be in the format secure string. And now you may be wondering, so how we are transforming some plain text into a secure string? We have a PowerShell command, which is convert to -secure string, which will help us to do so. So let's create a new variable for my new password. I will call it secure password. Then I'm using the convert command, convert to secure string, specifying my new password, which will be Lina12345, and then I will pass my new variable into my setDBA login command. And if I run those two lines, you can see that I just successfully changed the password of my Lina1 login. And final thing that I want to show you is how you can actually remove logins and users from how you can remove logins and users. So first, we want to remove our Lina1 login. To do so, I can use remove -dba login. And just the same way I created it, I have to specify instance 1 and my login name. And if I run this, I will be asked if I'm sure that I want to do so. And that's how we just dropped our Lina1 user. Similar way, but this time using remove -dba user, specifying the instance, the name of the database, and the username, I can remove my user Lina1 as well. And I just dropped Lina1. So in this part of the demo, I showed you how you can check what are the logins and users you currently have, how to create new both user and login, how to remove them, and last but not least, how you can change the password of a login using dbatools. Does anyone has any questions about logins and user management?
I don't see any, so I think you're good.
Cool. So let's go back to the presentation. I will not be able to cover all 600 commands in 1 hour, no matter how hard I try to do this. These were just the scenarios that I showed you are just some of the ones that I'm using most often, and I thought that they will be suitable for, they will be helpful for the most amount of people. In this slide, I also super quickly, in just a couple of minutes, want to show a few other commands that I really like and think will be really useful, just to let you know that they exist. And later on, you can actually go and check them out into dbatools website. And those commands that I wanted to mention are get -dba availability group. Super useful when you're working with availability groups, because just with one command, you can get a bunch of useful information. Another command that I used almost every day, and that's why I wanted to share, is find -dba instance, which is helping you to get a full list of all of the instances on the server and the status of the instance. You can also use start -dba service to start SQL server services. Identical, we have restart -dba service and stop -dba service to restart and stop your services. And the last command that I wanted to share as end of this presentation was actually start -dba migration. At the end of the day, dba tool was started as a migration tool. So there are a bunch of commands that could be super useful when you're performing a migration. So definitely recommend to go and checking them out. I added start dba migration because this is a command that consolidates most of the migration tool of dbas into a single command. And it's really useful if you want to migrate an entire instance. But yeah, there's so many other commands. So as I said, strongly recommend going and checking them out. With that said, we just went to the end of our my presentation. Just want to spend 1 minute to say huge thanks to my mentor, Henry Little. It was a pleasure meeting her, and she helped me a lot to actually prepare for this presentation. I also want to say thanks to my colleague, Jess Pomfret, who was the one who introduced dbatools to myself. It's helped me a lot, including to some of the technical parts of that presentation. Want to say huge thanks to all of you who came to join my presentation. You can find all of the demos on my GitHub. I will also send them to the New Studies of Data GitHub page as well. And if you find that interesting, I actually have written a blog post that covers most of the things that I was talking about. So you can go and check it out on my blog page. And with that said, I just finished my presentation. I have left some time, so if you have any questions, we can actually discuss them now.
Sure. You've got a really good one here, which is what advice would you give to someone who wants to learn how to use PowerShell?
I would say just start and playing with it. Back a year ago, I was actually super nervous because, as I said, like to be able to use some of the commands of DBA tools, especially in PowerShell, you actually don't have to be a PowerShell expert. I'm not a PowerShell expert at all. And still I'm using PowerShell and DBA tools almost every day, and it's helping me a lot. To start with the basic commands, just go read about them and just start implementing them. As you can see, most of the commands are just one-line commands, so you don't need any special or complicated scripts that you have to run. You can just go start play with them, especially with the get here with the get command, where you can just find some information. And also definitely recommend using get help a lot. I think even the experts in PowerShell are using get help a lot. And with get help, you can find all of the information that you need. So also something that helped me a lot was 2 books. It was 30 days, like PowerShell in 30 days of lunches. Also, there is not finished, but good book specifically, similar specifically for GBA tools, which is PowerShell GBA tools in 30 days of lunches. And it's super small chapters where that can help you a lot to get started with PowerShell in just a few weeks.
Awesome. Have you had any, like what do you think your biggest success or what have you figured out and been like most proud of thus far with using DBA tools?
As I said, I just feel like GBA tools has helped me a lot with my efficiency and the quality of my work. I really think that as a GBA, you don't have to just perform a task, but also you have to find a way to perform a task in the most efficient way. And in most of the cases, GBA tool is actually offering you exactly this. All of the things that I just showed you, there are other ways of doing them. You can always do them through Management Studio, pretty much all of them. However, sometimes that will take you such a huge amount of time. And knowing a better way of doing it, or even, I don't want to say it's always better, but because every single person is having different preferences, but just knowing another way of how to perform a task sometimes can save you in specific situations. So as I said, I mean, every single day I'm learning new GBA tools command. There's so many, I cannot remember all of them, and I cannot remember all of the parameters they are coming with. So just knowing that they exist and not being afraid to use them is definitely the first step. And it was a big step at the beginning because I was like, oh no, I don't know anything about GBA tools. How can I use them if I don't understand them fully? Well, you just have to start using them. And like the moment you start using them and see how helpful GBA tool is, I think you're getting a little bit addicted little by little. And at some point you realize that you're using them every single day. At least that's what happened with me.
Nice. Right. So a couple of things I want to mention. You said that you have these on your GitHub, your scripts and your deck, but you're also going to send them to the New Stars of Data team, right, to post on their GitHub as well, correct?
Absolutely.
Okay. And then Rob threw a couple links into the chat for those of you who heard Lena mention the PowerShell month of lunches and also the DBA tools month of lunches. He put the links for both of those in there if you're interested in checking those out. So I have a personal question, Lena, which is, you mentioned the DBA migrate. Have you used that personally to do a migration?
Actually, no. To be
Okay.
honest, I still haven't used DBA tools to migrate stuff. But I was just, when I start learning a little bit more about GBA tools, learning about the history and everything, I mean, definitely you can see that it has been started as a migration tool.
Yeah.
So, I have only seen lots of other presentation and stuff, and all of them have been amazing. And to be honest, it's again following the same logic. I mean, I'm happy that I'm familiar that those commands exist. So in the future, if I actually need to perform my patient, I can always go and check them out and see if they help me in situation if needed.
Yeah!